This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
Are us, as West Virginia fans, overreacting to the Week 1 loss to the Penn State Nittany Lions? Well, after 24 hours, or overnight at least, to think about it, in this episode, brought to you in part by BetUS Online Sportsbook and Casino, I'm going to talk about why I think we are overreacting, and I'm going to give you a list of 6 reasons with explanations. So stick around and let's talk about it right after this word from this other channel sponsor. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. What is up? Welcome into another edition of Couz's Corner. Come on in, bail yourself up to the bar, and let me serve you up this shot of top-shelf college football content. If you're new around here, I like to talk West Virginia football. I like to talk Big 12, and I like to talk conference realignment. If you like any of that, and you see that you like this content as we get through this video, do me a favor. Please hit that thumbs up button. It really helps that YouTube algorithm and helps pump this video out to more people. I did a live show last night after I got home from the game, and everything I said, I felt from the heart in that moment, and a lot of it I still agree with. But after sleeping overnight and some time to reflect on the game, some time to listen to some other podcasts, see some numbers, some PFF grades, some stats, some data, all of this stuff about the game, and then reflect on it, and then look ahead at the season, and even look back at last year a little bit. Here are my 6 takeaways and why I think we as West Virginia fans do not need to hit the panic button. There's already talk about firing Neil Brown, which I think is ludicrous. Guys, it's one game against arguably one of the top football teams in the entire country. Let's hold off. Let's wait 3 or 4 more weeks before we start judging this team. Obviously, there's Albany next week, which is going to be a win more, unless something tragic happens. Then there's the big rivalry game against Pitt. Then we get into conference play, which really matters. That's when the games really start to matter, even more so than this last one and even the Pitt game. So let's hold off a few weeks before we start passing judgment, okay? Because we really still don't know yet. Because West Virginia played a top 8 team, to be technical, in Penn State, who, oh, by the way, I think we may have underestimated as a fan base. Yes, we bought in our own hype because we thought our team would improve. But what we failed to realize is Penn State's going to be better too. They brought back a lot of their guys from a year ago, a lot of them NFL caliber players, went at a couple really good players from the portal, and brought in what appears to be better coordinators from a year ago, especially on the offensive side with Andy Kotelnicki, who us as West Virginia fans should have known was going to have that offense rolling. So when you look at the fact that Penn State is a top 10 team with NFL talent all over the field, yes, I did a video talking about PFF grades and how West Virginia should match up. But, man, I guess I was short-sighted in that video. I was looking strictly at PFF grades. I wasn't looking at anything else, and I underestimated Penn State. And I may have even overestimated West Virginia. I don't know. We don't know that yet, though, because, again, West Virginia's not going to play a team, I don't think anyway, in the 2024 season as good as what they played yesterday. And I'm recording this on Sunday. They're not going to play anyone as good as Penn State the rest of the year. So because of that, we don't need to panic. And now let me get into my list of 6 reasons. Number 1, there was a lot of talk about Garrett Green and his performance yesterday, myself included. I criticized Garrett, and rightfully so. He didn't play a great game, didn't play his best game. But let's take a look at his stats from yesterday, okay? He completed 15 out of 28 passes for 161 yards, okay? Last year against Penn State, he completed 16 of 27 passes for 162 yards. So pretty much the same stats. Did he not go on to have a great year? Did he not go on to have win a lot of football games for this team, who's to say he can't do that again in 2024? He was stifled by an elite defense just like he was a year ago. Yes, he could have gotten better, but guess what? Penn State's defense could have also gotten better. Okay? So and also, he didn't get a lot of help from his receivers either. Yes, he overthrew some balls. He made some probably bad decisions. He fumbled the ball. But when you look at his receivers didn't help him out. They had some drops. They weren't getting open. Their overall receiver grade, according to PFF College Football Show, which, by the way, is where I got this info from, their overall receiving grade was 53.3, so he didn't get any help. The receivers weren't getting open, but guess what? Do you think our receivers will play a defensive secondary as good as the one they faced against Penn State? Probably not. Probably not. Because, again, Penn State's defense, to me, at least so far, looked to be elite. So let's take that into account. The receivers will likely play better going forward. A couple of the guys are just getting integrated into the West Virginia system. A couple of the guys are still sophomores and still learning the position at that level. So let's give them time, okay? Reason number 2, I think West Virginia is going to be better and we don't need to panic, is the play calling and the schematics will improve. Now, Coach Brown mentioned in his post-game press conference how, they like to do a lot of motions and a lot of shifts similar to what Penn State did. Now, they're not going to do them probably. They're not going to be motioning and shifting offensive linemen necessarily like Penn State does. But they do like to do a lot of motions and shifts. But they had to take a lot of that off the table for the simple reason that Garrett and Brandon Yates or whoever's mistake it was, they couldn't get the snaps down. And Coach Brown and them chose to move away from that. Now, I disagree with the decision to move away from it. If it hadn't been an issue in camp, those 2 plays could have been anomalies. They could have fixed it in the middle of the game. So I think they should have stuck with the game plan. However, they didn't. Those will get cleaned up. They will be able to do more motions, more shifts to keep defenses off balance, which will open up not only the passing game, but also the running game. And the weak point of this offensive line is going to be the interior. Both Wyatt Milam and Nick Malone had good games yesterday, 2 of the higher-rated players on the team from a PFF grade perspective. They both performed well. Now, Wyatt missed the second half with cramps, but when he was in the game, he played well. He kept Abdul Carter out of the backfield for the most part. He won the battle against Abdul Carter. Now, Abdul Carter got in the backfield in the second half, but he wasn't going against Wyatt Milam. He was going against sophomore Johnny Williams. That being said, there are some question marks, and West Virginia may struggle some on the interior part of the offensive line, but West Virginia can schematically work around that. They can scheme around it. They'll be able to do that going forward. Hard to do that when you're playing a team like Penn State, who doesn't really have a whole lot of weaknesses on the defensive side of the ball. The other defenses they play won't be as hard to scheme against, in my opinion. So that's number 2. Reason number 3 that West Virginia will improve and we shouldn't panic is this. I think some of the question marks or some of the questions about the defense were partially answered, primarily the linebacker position. The 3 highest graded players on West Virginia's defense yesterday were all linebackers. Josiah Trotter graded out at an 82.9. Reed Carrico graded out at a 71.7, and Trey Lathan graded out at a 71.5. All 3 played well, especially Trotter, who also led the team with, I think, 9 or 10 tackles. Other than the one embarrassing moment he had where Drew Aller stiff-armed him plumb into the dirt, he had a good game. And he's a freaking freshman. It was his very first game at that level against arguably the best team he'll face, and he graded out at an 82.9 and had 10 tackles. The kid's going to be a superstar. No doubt in my mind as long as he stays healthy. So I think a lot of those questions were answered on the defense, especially at the linebacker position. And that was something we were wondering on coming into the season. Number 4, staying on the defensive side of the ball, when you look at some of the big pass plays that were given up in the game, myself and a bunch of the rest of us were kind of on the DBs for giving up plays. And some of that is fair because they lost one-on-one battles. But the positive side of that is they were losing one-on-one battles and guys weren't just running free a lot. Now, it did happen a few times. There were some guys running free, but it didn't happen near as much as it did a year ago. So that tells me I think the DBs that were brought in this offseason are better than the ones we lost. I think it confirmed that, at least so far. Again, we have a long way to go. 11 more games to answer all these questions, but at least right now, I think there's some hope there. The one pass play at the end of the first half, Drew Aller made a good throw into the back corner of the end zone. Put the ball where West Virginia's DB was going to have a hard time getting it. The receiver was covered. Now, he didn't make a play. He didn't turn around and make a play on the ball, which, wasn't good, but at least he was there. Last year, they weren't even there to make a play. So let's look at the positives there. The DBs are at least in position to make a play. Now, all they have to do is make a tweak in how they cover receivers. Maybe where they're at, maybe it's their eye discipline. Maybe it's, I don't know what it is, but they'll fix it. They have a chance to fix it. So I think that's something we can look at as a positive. Now, reason number 5, they have a week to get it right. It's well known that teams typically make improvements the most from week 1 to week 2. And West Virginia has a team in week 2 they should be able to make adjustments against. They can be pretty vanilla next week against Albany, hopefully. Now, Albany's a really good FCS team, so West Virginia can't take them lightly. But they should at least be able to be somewhat vanilla, not have to show a whole lot of what they're going to do going forward. Work on fundamentals and still win the football game. Now, again, they've got to be serious. They can't come in with the wrong mindset, thinking they're going to roll all over Albany. They should be able to win the game, though, and they should be able to clean up some of their mistakes. When you have to play a top 10 team in week 1, man, you've got, everybody's got kinks to work out in week 1 of the season. Heck, even Penn State had kinks to work out. But Penn State had the more talented players, so it didn't show up as bad. When you are not the most talented team on the field, you're not able to work out your kinks because every single mistake is going to come back to bite you. Because you have to play a near perfect game from an unforced error perspective, and West Virginia wasn't able to do that. So, in my opinion, they should be able to do that in week 2 against a team who should be inferior to them from a talent standpoint. So, even when they do make mistakes, it's not going to come back to bite them, and it'll give them time to clean up stuff. So, they still have time to get it right, and they still have 11 more games to play this year. If you're looking for a new sports book to do your betting this college football season, look no further than BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. They offer 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. As you can see, after Georgia's throttling of Clemson on Saturday, they are now the favorite to win the NCAA Football National Championship at plus 300 odds. I'm going to drop $20 on it, place my bet. Confirm. Boom. There we go. I've just now placed $20 on Georgia winning the NCAA Football National Championship after I saw their dominance over Clemson. Now let's get back to the video. The 6th and final reason I think we might have overreacted to West Virginia's loss to Penn State, and we shouldn't panic just yet, is this. It's freaking Penn State. West Virginia has never been good against Penn State. I got to give credit to the guys over at 3 Guys Before the Game. I saw their game review, and they had some really good stats on this. They look back at the history of West Virginia's series against Penn State. Don Nehlen played Penn State 12 times. Don Nehlen, the best coach, I don't even know if it's arguable, the greatest football coach in the history of West Virginia football, right? He took them and put them on the national map, right? Competed for national championships, multiple 10 and 11 win seasons, multiple bowl games. You name it. He did it, right? Other than win the national title, he did it. His record, what is Don Nehlen's record against Penn State? 2-10 all time. 2-10. West Virginia's overall record against Penn State historically, 9 wins, 50 losses, and 2 ties. 9 times West Virginia has beaten Penn State ever. So why did we as a fan base just think all of a sudden West Virginia was going to come in and be able to match up one-on-one, mano a mano, with a top 10 Penn State team when we haven't been able to do it ever before? Our expectations were way too high. And I realized that. I drank the Kool-Aid. To be fair, the staff kind of sold us the Kool-Aid, but I drank it. And I'm sure a lot of you did too. Tony dug deeper. What was the average score? Well, actually, let me back up a minute. West Virginia, both times Neil Brown faced Penn State, they were in the top 10. They were top 7 last year, top 8 this year going into the season. The average score was 36-14, right, when you average out the two games. Don Nehlen played Penn State 8 times when they were ranked in the top 8. I'm sorry, 4 times when they were ranked in the top 8. What was the average score of the games? He was 0-4, by the way. What was the average score of those games? I'm glad you asked. 32-4. 32-4 was the average score. In Don Nehlen's 7th year as the coach for the West Virginia Mountaineers, he played Penn State in Morgantown. Guess what the final score was? 19-0. 19-0. Shutout. Completely shut out. At least Neil Brown hasn't pitched a shutout. Or at least they didn't pitch a shutout, rather, against West Virginia under Neil Brown. Nobody's wanting – everybody loves Don Nehlen. Everybody loved what he did for the program. Did they want to fire Don? And I don't remember this because I was too young to remember it. But did fans want Don Nehlen fired every time he lost to Penn State, a top 10 team? I know what a lot of you are going to say, but Couz, he beat Penn State twice. Yes, he did. But he had 12 shots at it. And the 2 times he beat Penn State were years he had teams that were either as talented or more talented than Penn State. 1984, West Virginia came into the season ranked 18th. Penn State was 19th, and it was a 3-point ball game. 1988, the Major Harris team, the year West Virginia played for a national title, West Virginia came into the season ranked 7th, or came into the game, rather, ranked 7th. Penn State was unranked. It was a down year for Penn State. They don't have a lot of those. 2024 is not one of those. But yet, for whatever reason, we thought we would be able to come in here and go toe-to-toe, mano-a-mano with Penn State. Why did we think that? We were sold the goods, the bill of goods. But I understand that Neil Brown, he can't come out here and say, well, we're not going to have a chance against this team. He can't. He has to believe in his guys. And he has to get to they needed the fan base to be excited. Maybe they went too far with it. And I've got to blame Pat McAfee a little bit. Now, I'm not blaming him for the game, but, you know, his show being in Morgantown, he helped build the hype up and all that. Good for him. But at the end of the day, it's on us as fans to be realistic. West Virginia historically is a 7.5 win football team. Historically, 7.5 wins a year. Now, we should expect to compete for conference titles occasionally, at least once a decade. But to expect to come in and go mano a mano with a top 10 Penn State team who has NFL players from top to bottom was unrealistic in the first place. And I raised my hand as one of the guilty parties here. I thought they would compete. Were you one of the guilty parties? Did you drink the Kool-Aid? And what do you think about this assessment here that the fan base was our expectations weren't realistic? But when you look over the list of things, Garrett Green's stats were about the same as a year ago. The linebackers played well. The DBs were at least in a spot to make a play in most cases this year, where they weren't a year ago. The play calling and schematics can improve from one week to the next because they're going to be more comfortable with this team and this roster that they had not seen play a game yet against other competition. And unfortunately, it had to be against a top 10 team game one. They have a week to get it right against Albany. And like I said in my last point, it was freaking top 10 Penn State, who historically, look, they're a blue blood program. You can probably count on 2 hands the number of teams in this country that can compete with Penn State year in, year out. West Virginia is not one of them, and they never have been. not year in, year out. Occasionally, yes, but it's only in the rare moments when West Virginia has NFL talent up and down its roster as well. And maybe that's not this year. Maybe that's just not this year. But that doesn't mean they can't compete in the Big 12 against teams more on their level, with talent more on their level. So shame on us as a fan base for wanting to fire Neil Brown after one game against a top 10 opponent. Penn State's going to make a lot of teams look bad this year, folks. I'm telling you. West Virginia's not going to be the only team they make look bad. I think they're just that good. And maybe we just need to accept that. Okay? But I want to know your thoughts. If you've liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new here and or if you're not new and you just haven't done it yet, please subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 10,000 subscribers. I'd love to be able to do it by the end of the calendar year. I know that's a long shot, but hey, anything's possible, right? Also, if you want to support me financially, you can do that. There are ways you can do that in the description box. You can also become a channel member today. Take advantage of the perks a VIP channel membership has to offer. $2.99 a month or $4.99 a month, just like the fine folks scrolling on the bottom of your screen today. Big Aaron, Eric Flowers, Bob Swanger, and Fanboy Prime. Thank the four of you for being new members here on the channel. Also want to give a shout out to Joey Foster and Andrew Starcher, who are two channel members who gifted several memberships during my last live stream. Not sure if these gentlemen were recipients of the gifted memberships or if they bought them themselves, but it doesn't matter. Nonetheless, they are VIP members here on the channel, and I want to thank them for their membership, and they will be able to take advantage of the member perks for at least a month now that they're channel members. If you want to place a bet on the NCAA Football National Championship or any other bet out there at BetUS, check out the link in my description box or in the pinned comment below. Place your bet, but please do so responsibly. Only gamble if you can afford to do so. With that being said, I really appreciate you tuning into this episode. Please check out the one in the corner of your screen right now if you want more West Virginia football content. I hope you have a top shelf rest of your day, and I hope you will continue, even after Saturday's game, to cue country roads.